schönen guten Abend zum heutigen Doppelvortrag und zu dem ersten Vortrag oder Veranstaltung nach der Sommerpause unter Anführungszeichen. Wie die Konzeption von der Ausstellung von Anne Lacaton und Jean-Philippe Vassal eigentlich relativ zu Ende war dann die Frage, die ich Anne und Jean-Philippe gestellt hat, wen möchten Sie gerne im Rahmen ihrer Ausstellung zu einem Vortrag einladen. Und da war eigentlich relativ schnell, wie soll man sagen, der zweite Vortragende heute am Tapet. Das ist heute wird ungefähr 1,5 Stunden dauern. Es werden am Anfang Anne Lacaton den Vortrag halten und danach der Herr Müller. Er ist 1935, und lassen Sie sich das auf der Zunge zergehen, in Worms geboren, hat 1961 dann das Diplom in Architektur und Ingenieurbau in Darmstadt gemacht und arbeitet eigentlich jetzt seit Ende der 60er Jahre am Thema pneumatische Architektur. Also es ist sicher seine Expertise. Also eine Bekannte von mir aus Wien hat gesagt, es ist der Papst dieser Thematik, und sie sind auch befreundet. Also es wird dann im Vortrag auch gezeigt, es gibt am Dach des Ateliers von Lacaton Vassal ein Pneu, das leider jetzt leicht zerstört ist, aber über Jahre hinweg der Ruheraum, Sternenblickraum, der Entspannungsraum vom Büro Lacaton Vassal war. Ich danke mal, thank you very much for coming, und vielen Dank, dass Sie auch gekommen sind. Also er ist heute mit dem Zug aus Paris gekommen, und was ich nicht gewusst habe, er wird morgen erst später wegfahren, weil er seit 50 Jahren befreundet ist mit Herrn Leitner, der jetzt im Hofgarten eine Soundinstallation hat, und das sind so die kleinen biografischen Zufälle, die man eigentlich dann in der großen, weiten Welt mitbekommt. Gut, ich wünsche einen interessanten, spannenden Abend und thank you very much.
Okay. Entschuldigung, ich spreche nicht Deutsch sehr gut. So spreche in English. I'm very pleased to be. Oh, I think I have a kind of echo in the ear. No? Yeah. Okay, it's fine. Fine. Okay. No. It's fine. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for the invitation again. And after our first visit in June, that was a very, very nice moment for us to come here. I'm back to try to say you more about our project and about our philosophy of working. The title of the lecture is Freedom of Use. For us, freedom is a very important word. Architecture is about freedom, about generosity, about pleasure, and our philosophy for all the project is based on a principle of generosity of space and economy, serving the life, the uses and the appropriation, with the objective of inventing beyond standards to make architecture pleasant, efficient, affordable for everyone, and sustainable. The freedom of use, the capacity of the space, that means a great potential of use, the flexibility to give importance and place to people and uses, to appropriation, are the important qualities we aim in designing the project. To achieve these goals, our design approach is supported by some principle: generosity of space, extra space, double space. It means that we try to facilitate the multiplicity of use and the appropriation. The use of efficient constructing systems and bioclimatic architecture. The constructing systems, we like to use standard system in order to make more surface, more volume in very economical way. And the economy is also very important to spend less and better. It's really a key point. On the contrary of being a constraint, economy allows to do more with the same money. The bioclimatic concept is to use as much as possible the natural resource, and the concept of the greenhouses, of winter gardens, of double space, double skin, take an important place in our architecture. Another principle, which is also very important, is the value of the existing. We never start from nothing in the project, and it's important to start the project with a clear understanding and of the values of what we have in hands, and to use as much as possible these values. We try also to, in the project, to eliminate constraints. It means that we try to give maximum place for the use, for the space, and for people. We like designing in the process from inside out. It means that we start the project from the interior space, at the place of users moving, experiencing the space, and also moving from a space to another one. And in the principle also of the projects, we develop dialogue and participation to allow the project growing with in discussions and adjustment. Since the beginning, our design approach has been supported by those principles, and all these values reinvent the idea of inhabiting, which is for us a very important concept of in architecture. Inhabiting not only for housing, but for every space of use. Inhabiting beyond the functional, freedom, comfort, generosity of space, pleasure, and luxury for all. The first part of the presentation will be about the housing projects, and for us it's very important to work on housing, and in our practice the project of housing takes a lot of place since the beginning. Probably something like 60% of our projects are housing projects. And since the beginning, we have developed the idea that every dwelling should be like a villa, should have the same facilities, and a villa for us is it's not the principle to make everywhere single houses, but much more to understand what makes the character, the values of the space of a villa, to bring it into more collective and more dense housing. So what means a house like a villa? It means that it's much more than minimum function. It means that the dwelling must have extra space, additional facilities. And in this sketch, it's a comparison between, on the left, what the standard housing is, what we receive as specifications when we are starting the project. And for example, in France, a standard dwelling of for a family of 3 persons, of 2 bedrooms, is something like 60 to 65 square meters. And we think that it's too small, and that it's not possible in such a small space to develop good conditions of life. So we think that this standard space must have more additional space around, like winter gardens, terraces, balconies, a kind of unprogrammed space. And we estimate that at the minimum in the project, we must give 50% of the habitable surface in addition to the standard to the dwelling. What is important is also to create more facility, more mobility, more freedom on the living space. And again, the comparison of a standard, which is very tiny, much organized around an entrance, a corridor. And it's interesting to extend mobility and to give more freedom and to allow appropriation. It means that all rooms must have large doors opening to outside, and to give facility of moving by inside or by outside as a house on the same level. The use of open constructing system, of standard construction system like beam, columns and floors compared to a construction with walls allows this flexibility, but allows also economy. And using a prefabricated constructing system allows to build larger for the same cost, and also it allows to provide very free space where the elements of construction like a facade or like partitions are totally free from the structure and can be placed everywhere. Compared to the standard constructions, the space organization is not defined by the structure, because the open structure allows this open space. Giving more space is also an interesting way to introduce a system of saving energy by doing winter gardens, extra space with intermediate climate. These replace closed facade with outdoor insulation. So it's no more an argument in terms of thermics to say that the building should be more closed with small windows and more isolation instead of large glass windows, because now we know that we can do something else. But it's important to multiply the kind of layers and also to use the space as a kind of isolation. The first house that we did 25 years ago, that was more intuitive in all those principles, the relation with climate, the economy, but the first goal that we didn't want to compromise was to give more surface for this family of four, to a couple and two children with a very low budget, and that was really our obsession, to give more than a standard house. And also we wanted at the time also to introduce those principles, the bioclimatic principle. It means that how to use at the maximum the resource of the climate, like the sun, ventilation, and the house is a kind of a box in a box. So we developed this large volume with a big greenhouse of 6 meters high, open onto the east, and on the other part it's a box made with a steel structure and isolated wooden panels. And the house can move from the very close winter, very cold winter when everything is closed and just a part is heated. But the greenhouse can be used as soon as there is the sun, because very fast the temperature grows, increases into the greenhouse. And in the summer, the house is the maximum surface, including the garden, because all can be widely open. So while this family expected for 60,000 euros to have a house of 70 square meters, we built 180 with all this variation of space, which for us is a quality. And the use of the winter garden came from very close study of the agricultural greenhouses. We studied the climate inside those agricultural greenhouses, and we thought that it was interesting to use the same principle in architecture and for housing. At the time, it was we couldn't make any calculations, but our intuition was right, and the house is not spending a lot of energy for the heating, and it's also very nice space and extra space that the family uses most of the time of the year. So we learned a lot with this first house, and especially this starting from a great ambition, how the economy finally became a tool of freedom instead of being a constraint. And we learned a lot by ourselves in this relation between cost and construction. And now for us, it's, we consider that this issue of economy is a kind of key point in architecture. Some time later, we were involved in the project for collective social housing, and immediately we had in mind to achieve the same ideas as for this small private house, and we proposed to the owner to work in that way. At the beginning, he didn't really believe that it was possible to build more with the same budget. But I think we were convincing, and he agreed that we developed the project in that way. This is social housing, so it means that in France, social housing is subsidized by government or cities, and so it's public subsidies. So there is a budget which is given that cannot be extended. And that was finally the only rule or the only condition that the client gave to us. It's a project that we did with 4 other architects. It's a plot which was a former factory which was destroyed in the 80s, but this factory is located in one of the biggest city workers in Europe of 1,500 small houses that step by step has become the ownership of the inhabitants. And today half of this city belongs to a social housing company, and half of the houses belongs to the inhabitants. And for the birthday of this worker city, the owner wanted to make a new cité manifeste, housing manifeste, and invited 5 architects to think on that question. So we proposed very fast to build twice more than the standard, and we engaged to do it in the budget. But at the very beginning, it was very important to discuss also with the owner about the issue of the rents after the construction, because those dwellings are twice bigger than the standard, and normally he could have rented twice more. So at the end, twice more is not anymore affordable as social housing. So we discussed we had very interesting discussion, because the client was very open and they wanted really to make something new, so he was ready to change some of the practice of the uses. And we had a common commitment that if we arrive to make the project in the budget with this proposition of making more, on his side, he engaged not to rent the dwellings more, but to rent it in function of the typology and not in function of the surface. And at the end, both of us all the commitments, and we achieved the project in the budget with very huge apartments, and they were rented afterwards at the same cost of the typology. So for this project, we if I refer to what I said before about the greenhouses, we thought that that would be interesting to combine this technology of greenhouses with basic construction, and we proposed to we could build a maximum 2 levels in the city of Mulhouse, and we proposed to build a kind of big loft which used the maximum of volume which was allowed by the city regulation on the plot. So it means that this plot was 60 meters long by 20 meters large, and we had to provide something like 12 to 14 dwellings. So we built a first platform in concrete with something like 3 meters under ceiling, and which was done just with columns, slabs, and just a few walls for the stability. And on top, we built 3 rows of greenhouses, exactly the same that we can find on the countryside, with all the equipments for ventilation, for shading, and we just changed the way it was fixed on the structure. So doing that, we did a very big volume with very nice spaces on the ground floor, and spaces on the first floor, which has a different, very different conditions. And the second step of the project was how to divide this big volume into 14 dwellings. So we just tried to establish some rules, such as every dwelling should have the 2 spaces, 1 space on ground floor and the space on the first floor. And then we established that every living room should have a glass facade of 6 to 7 meters large, and every bedroom a facade of 3 meters. So we divided with always 2 orientations, and we divided the volume in 14 dwellings. And at the end, we provided the dwellings were inside the budget, so it means that this one, for example, is 130 square meters, while standard was 70. The cost in 2005 was 75,000 euros net, exactly the same cost as the standard, and it was rented at the same rent as the standard. So we didn't do any partitions, but it was intended with the client that during the 2 years after the completion, we should come back and discuss with the families to see what they wanted to change, because the owner was a little bit worried that the families don't like really to have so open space. But we were, in a way, we thought that because it was a big space, the space in a way has a kind of same effect as partitions. And during the 2 years, no family asked for adding partitions. So here you can see, for example, the principle of thermal curtains that we placed in just behind the glass windows, and we really experimented this on that project, and now we have developed the product with a factory, and it works very well. And now we can, in France, we can integrate the thermal curtains in the calculation for the thermal efficiency of the buildings. So the goal was also to to give this big extra space in front of the living room. The living room are something like 7 meters wide, and it can be widely open, and in the spring or summer or even in the fall to extend the space of living into this winter garden. This project was very successful, and some years later, with the same client, he commissioned us again for a second project in different neighborhood, because here we had to make more density, and we could build ground floor plus 4 levels. But it was clear that we will make again a project with very generous housing. So, but in different conditions, because here we have to stack the levels. So the master plan was already done, and we had to fit with the master plan. But we use the same principle of extra space, winter garden, but here we use a system of prefabricated concrete construction with a span of 10 meters, so that in every flat we don't have any structure. The columns are always in between the dwellings. So we have inside a dwelling 10 meters by 20 meters, nearly 20 meters between, with no construction impact. And then we place the facade, the winter garden, which in this case are 4 meters wide. We had a lot of typologies on 60 dwellings. We have something like 20 different typology of single level, duplex, quite big dwellings like houses on the last level. And this is the final result. And here again, it's rented social housing, and it's not rented more because it's much bigger. So the thing is to work very, very hard with every element of the construction to optimize the dimension, to use as much as possible the products from the firms with the dimensions that are the most efficient, to calculate also the dimensions of the windows frame, so that we can use in the most efficient way the aluminium or steel profiles, etc., etc. And to avoid any complexity, because complexity very often costs a lot. The stairs are in between the dwellings, so we didn't have to make any holes in the floor. And this is one of the dwellings on the ground floor with 10 meters wide living room and kitchen open onto this winter garden, and with a small garden in front. And in the upper levels, the garden is replaced by balconies or terraces. So again, you can see the principle of the double facade with, on the left, the glass facade insulated with thermal curtains, and on the right, this is the facade of the winter garden, which is less airproof, and with also solar shading. So it's important for us to consider that housing is the basic unit that makes a city. It's a unit of measurement multiplied by 10, 100, 1,000, 1 million. Quality and generosity of housing, affordability, diversity of people and ways of life, freedom of use are the basic conditions to make the city. It means that good condition of housing, having a decent home, are the starting point and the necessary condition for social relationships happen. And therefore, this is also the condition for the sustainability of the city itself. It means that the city should provide with good and affordable housing in building massively new housing, but also, and this is as much important, it's necessary to upgrade simultaneously the quality of the very big number of existing housing. To our opinion, it's it's not really sustainable in one hand to have new housing with maximum requirements in terms of quality, in terms of energy, and at the same time that the existing remains in bad quality. So it increases the gap of difference, and it's important to do the both at the same time, renovation, transformation, update, but at the same time a good housing. So housing is a very important subject for the society and of course for the architects, and also a very political subject because it concerns everyone. This is why, to our opinion, housing can be supported only by a collective and public ambition that should set the rules and the goals. And today, sometimes we are in the cities where the way which is taken is in a way the opposite, and it's important that housing should be removed from its financial and social classifications, which most of the time leads to making difference or exclusion, and it's about opposing to the principle of housing as a financial product which is far away from any ambition of quality of housing. A second issue which is also very important for us is the value of the existing and working with the existing, with people, with climate, with trees, with soils, with everything already there, with economy to do more with less. One project which was very interesting some 20 years ago was to do a house on a very nice and beautiful site, but also very fragile because it's a sand dune on the seaside in the middle of a pine trees forest, and we were asked by a family to build here a holiday house on this plot, which has an amazing value. Just a square meter of ground at this place is extremely expensive, and compared to this, the cost of the construction is quite nothing. So with house or without house, the plot is very expensive. So the house finally doesn't give so much value. So it's important because it gives a kind of lightness in the way of thinking architecture, when finally the architecture has not the most important value on the site. So we proposed to, because the site was really fantastic with all trees, with the view on the sea, we proposed that the project should be very delicate in integration of the site. We proposed to keep all the trees and to build a house a little bit elevated from the ground, a rise up of 3 to 4 meters up, in order to get to keep the ground as it is with the sand, and also to get the best view on the seaside. So we built a steel construction, very simple, with no kind of scenography of the trees, but just a combination of this construction, this light construction, and the landscape produces something totally amazing, where the landscape and the view keeps the most importance. Another project, which was a competition in France, in the east, in the west, nearly west coast, Saint-Nazaire. It's a city on the west coast, on Atlantic, and we had to make on this part ecological new development. And the place was really nice, with just at the door of the city center, with a lot of trees, a kind of not really a native landscape, but very, very strong place with a lot of diversity of biotopes for birds, for different animals. What we could observe in looking to different Google photos from the past, that there was a very strong regression of this place compared to 10 years, 20 years before. The forest was reducing. So on the place there was also an abandoned building, which was a former research building of the university, but totally abandoned, and the city has planned to demolish this place. So what was a brief on this plot for the competition was to do something like 300 houses on the ground. Checking very fast what it could do. In fact, it was covering the whole plot, and nothing was remaining from the forest, while the brief was really insisting on the fact that it should be ecological, it should be a new qualities regarding the ecology and energy and so on. So finally we decided that we will not do little houses on the ground, but that we will propose collective housing in order to have a minimum footprint on the ground and keep the ground natural as much as possible. We propose to keep the existing block and to make a community space, existing building, and to renovate and to make a community space inside, and to make construction that would be constructed from 12 meters above ground and above in order to keep the forest safe. So that was the principle of scaffolding, and that creates a platform at 12 meters above ground, and above we could build a light construction, steel construction with dry floors to make the dwellings, and on some points we could have some more levels. So on the ground we could make something very like acupuncture, with just a few columns and just some elevators on some points, but not to have foundation that were connected, connecting all the columns, and to put all the construction above, and the ground could remain a public garden, a public park. Doing that, it was possible to imagine, because we worked with landscaper, with botanists, and we could imagine that the forest could grow again and recover in 10 years, but after 40 years, the forest could recover its quality and its importance as it was before. So that was also very simple construction for social housing. So unfortunately, we didn't win the competition. But that was an interesting experience in continuity with a house on the seaside. Working with the existing is first to observe which are the values of the place. In Bordeaux, we were invited by the city in a process of redesigning the squares of the city. We were invited to redesign this place, and the topic of the project was embellishment of the square. So it's a place that we were not used to go, because it was a little bit apart in a very small neighborhood, a part of the center. But the first visit on the place was for us surprising, because we found immediately a lot of interesting qualities. And the first question was, how can we embellish such a place which has already so many qualities? So we had 4 months to do this project of redesigning the square, and we went there, different different times. And finally, after 4 months, we came back with our project, and the project was at the question of embellishment of the square. Our reply is the square is already beautiful, and we develop all the argumentations why we found it already beautiful. And our project, we propose as a project to do nothing. Just a very few cleaning, but it's important to consider that doing nothing is also a project. So being an architect is not just building or just, is at first thinking to a situation, looking at the situation, observing, understanding the question, and then giving a response. And the response is not always to build. Working with the modernist housing blocks, it's also a very important issue in everywhere in all the cities, and the issue is what to do with those housing blocks which need today to be refurbished, to be upgraded. So what to do with these blocks? Like in France, we have a lot of these cities. This one is La Courneuve, one of the first new city built in the suburb of Paris in the 60s. And in France, there was, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, an important national program which was launched by the government, and this program is based on, was based, but is still working. It was based on the demolition and rebuild of more than 200,000 units. So as architects, when this program was launched, we couldn't agree that demolition of buildings which have only 40 years, 50 years could not be a solution, and that we were really involved to know more about that issue and to see what could be possible, but with in mind the goal that this was a mistake to demolish. So we started with this principle: transformation, never demolish, always add, extend, give more, less expensive and more sustainable. So we developed a research that we name Plus with a friend architect, Frédéric Druot. This research was published in 2006, and this research was really a kind of manifesto against demolition, but with a study of a lot of case study of example with details of plans, construction, but also the cost calculation, just to give all the argumentation on our position. Transformation, openness, extension. So we had afterwards the opportunity to make a very few projects, and the last one is this one in Bordeaux. This is a city of 4,000 dwellings built from the 60s to the late 70s. At the beginning, it was not very well integrated in the city, but now it's really in the middle of the city center and the place where it's nice to live. Many blocks have been already basically renovated with insulation and interior renovation, but these three blocks have not been renovated, and that was the subject of the competition. So when we did the competition, we had in mind this research that we have done, and this research was really based on the fact that it's always important to start from the inside and not to define that it's ugly, that it's bad, that it's out of use only by looking from the inside and looking the buildings themselves, and with no care that inside so many people are living. So here, as we did in the research, we started to go inside. And we didn't care that it was big blocks, long bars with 530 dwellings. And inside, dwelling after dwelling, we met a lot of different atmosphere. And finally, the value, which is not outside, is inside. Because in every dwelling, the 530 families has given a special value, a personal value, and they cannot accept that someone say your building is ugly and it's just good to be demolished. So it's very important to start from the inside and to consider what is good, that we must really keep, that we have not to lose, and what is missing that the project can add, can change, in order to provide afterwards a very good and much better condition of housing. So all these situations, which are very common, but all of them, they are a proof of the value that the people give to their home. And that's very touching to see all this situation. And after the visit, we cannot be the same. And we have in mind another something else. So on the competition, we propose to work on extensions, because in our study plus we studied that most of the time it's quite difficult to make restructuration inside, because there are a lot of walls and we don't know exactly how it's built. And we arrived to the conclusion that extending the space and creating a new surface was an opportunity to solve a lot of problems. A lot of problem of the space. Giving more space allows to solve the problem of a small living room, small kitchen, and so on. But also it allows to solve, to bring solutions to technical problems like the fire transmission, like energy saving. So it's a kind of double goal, giving more space and finding solutions to some technical problems. So we propose to add in front 4 meters, 3 meters point 2 given to a winter garden, and 80 centimeters for a balcony in front, and also to open all the handrails in order to create everywhere, for every room, a door which allowed to go directly to the winter garden and to change the relationship with this place, also to change the mobility inside. So we did it only on one side, because the budget was the budget for social housing, not so big, 50,000 euros per dwelling. I forgot to say that in the government program of demolition and rebuild, the cost of demolition and rebuild of one dwelling is around 150,000 euros. Here, for 50,000, we can renovate in a very, very good way one dwelling. So we propose to do this work, and we propose to make it without emptying the building, without removing the families, because to find 530 dwellings, new dwellings, to relocate all these people is something like 10 years. So that was important to think to a method of works that would allow to keep people inside. So that was the first process, which was the addition outside. From this process of addition, there is it's outside, so there is no disturbance of the inhabitants. And then it comes when we have to change the facade and to replace the windows and the handrails by a sliding door. But the process was done so that this operation was something like 2-3 days maximum for one dwelling. So we applied this process to all dwellings and all levels. And as we won the competition, we did afterwards the construction. And starting from this situation, extension with modules of winter gardens and the final result. So the modules were built out of the site, like this element, 7 meters, 0.5 by 4 meters. They came from outside, so there was nothing built on the place. Before we did the new foundations, because all these extensions are self-supported, because it cannot be supported by the existing building, but it's that they had their own foundations. And then there is the operation of placing the module with only 2 guys guiding the concrete module, and every day they could place something like 7 modules. And then to prepare the level above. And when we have done 3 levels, we can start the process of opening the facade. 1 day or 1 day and a half to cut the handrails, and 1 day and a half to bring the new glass facade. And when it's finished, it can be opened for the inhabitants. So during the process of cutting the handrail, we just place a temporary partition at 1 meter behind for the dust and so on. So it means that the family can stay inside during these 2-3 days of works. And afterwards, from this, they get a new surface, a new extension, which is really a place for the appropriation, because we cannot say that it's a living room, it's not a kitchen, it's just an extra space. And it's amazing to see how fast it is used by the inhabitants, and the creativity which is given by people to do it. And the change of the facade is radical, which is not just reclining, but just a process which starts from the interior space and which extends exterior space to outside. And we did also an additional houses on the top to gain a new 8 bigger houses that were not existing in the block. Another case which was a little different, because here there was also the opportunity to at the same time to transform, but at the same time to build new housing, because the situation offers a lot of empty space around the blocks, and we had to work on this block to transform it. So at the same time that we proposed the transformation as for the project before, we considered that around we have a lot of empty space used by car parking, which was not very interesting, and that was a great opportunity to densify on the place. So we propose to add two wings with new housing, which was a very interesting process for the owner, because he owned already the land. There are all the services, all the networks, and we don't have to provide more important networks, so we had just to pay the construction. And in a city where, in cities where very often the most difficult is to find new plots to build, it's very important to use as much as possible the availability of the land, but which is not determined just by a kind of ratio of densification, but determined by the real potential of the situation. Sometimes it's possible to densify, sometimes it's not interesting because it will degrade the situation. In this case, it was possible to do it, and the owner accepted our proposal. So we did an extension with a steel dry construction that could go very fast. And the building is at the same time, it's a new building with 40 dwellings transformed and renovated at very good condition, and 40 new dwellings. And without damaging the green quality of the surroundings, because we just used unused car parking. So, and for the transformation from this situation, we could open the handrails, and again, this is a place where the appropriation is always really surprising. So with this renovation transformation that was possible on the site, to add more than 200 new housing. So, but unfortunately, in the meanwhile, there was a new municipality that decided to change the plans, and it will not, we just did this building, but we will not go on to densify a little more the project. So it's just to say that in the city there are a lot of situations like this one, where there is at the same time this process of renovation, transformation to upgrade the existing, but also a real capacity of densification. The only thing is that it should be looked case by case. It cannot be the result of a general rule. It's just a process of case by case, where the evaluation of every case is important. So every dwelling, every building, every plot can be increased, sustainable and qualitative densification for the benefit of living space, uses and inhabitants. I don't know if my time is done, or if I can do the last part or not. Arnaud? Can I take 10 minutes more? Yeah? Hans Walter, I can take 10 minutes more? Je peux prendre 10 minutes de plus? Okay? Okay, so very fast. Just to say that invent space for use, it's not only for housing, but for any kind of space. And it's just now about 3 public buildings, a school of architecture, double space and program space to invent uses. A school of architecture is a very interesting building in a city, because it's probably the place where there are a lot of interesting ideas developed about the future of the city, the quality of housing, the quality of everything. And it's a kind of mine of resources, but the problem is that most of the time it remains enclosed inside, and it's never open to the knowledge of everyone. So here that was in a way, in the brief, the school has added a very interesting text about what they were expecting of the school in terms of pedagogy, in terms of public use, and so on. And beside the program that we normally receive with a lot of technical specification or surface specification, this brief was of 3 pages was probably the most important of the brief for the competition. So this project is in a new, it was a former industrial island in the city, but now it's reused with a lot of new activities of new public buildings. And what is interesting is that finally it's making a house or making a school is the same attitude and the same way of thinking. The idea of extra space that creates flexibility, capacity, creativity. So in the school, as for the first house, we decided that we will double the program to give extra space for the activities, and to give an interesting combination between a space which is programmed and the space which is unprogrammed. So the project was designed in 2 steps. The first step was to create a big infrastructure, which is much more than a building. It's like a grounds. So we proposed to create on the whole surface of the plot 3 grounds above the ground floor. So these grounds were at a very high capacity of load, 1,000 kilo per square meters, and the big height in between, 9 meters for the ground floor and 7 meters for the other floor. And the roof itself was also like a floor where it could be possible to do something. And all this structure was linked by the structure of 10 by 10, that is a very simple grid. It was linked by a big ramp that runs on the long sides to connect all the levels, but also by 2 cores with stairs. So the structure was making the first step, and the structure for now is not yet a school of architecture. It's just a very capable structure where a lot of activities, a lot of programs could happen. And the second step was to do the school of architecture inside, doing this structure with a great potential of rebuilding inside. We propose to rebuild on half of the part, light floors with a steel construction and wooden floors that would represent the program of the school. It means the classrooms, the library, auditorium, while the rest of the structure would be the extra space. So this secondary structure can change, can be deconstructed or densified. But it remains half of the surface. Here in this section it's the blue, which has no function. It's unprogrammed and it's given to the users to define their own program or their own activity. And the green is a program space which were given by the brief. So we had something like 9,000 square meters for the program, and we developed 18,000 square meters plus something like 9,000 of outdoor space, including the roof. So the building completed. And this building is, that was also a wish of the school, that it could be widely open to the city to invite public activities in connection also with this, what the school is producing. It's why the ground floor is has not really pedagogical function, but it's more open to the city. And the classrooms and the studio are on the last level, and in between it's library, exhibition gallery, and so on. So this is all to make the models, and we gave 9 meters in the ceiling. It's 1,000 square meters connected to the street. So it's possible to make models at the scale 1:1, a lot of installations, but it's also a large space which allows to make concerts, parties. The auditorium is a class, but it's also done to welcome events, and it can be widely open on the square to develop also theater or dance events. This extra space on the first level is not used for the studio, for the library, just a place for meetings or for creating models or anything, or to make workshops, sport, and all the the program space, like here a studio of design, are widely open onto this extra space. And this is important as for a house, that the combination with, between program space and extra space allows the maximum freedom of use and the maximum of possibilities. So the students are very active, and they have created a lot of associations to propose many projects to the director, Fashion Week, sport events, or just radio and TV shows and so on, but also just places to stay and to rest. The ramp is also a very convenient system to go slowly from one floor to another floor and up to the last level. And the roof of the building is a square, big square, on top of which a very large view on the city. We are 24 meters high from the ground level. And it's a place where a lot of also public activity. It's open to the public and sometimes also on the Sunday. Or like one summer, the cinema, outdoor cinema that stays 3 months during the summer. And all this event was organized and built by the students of the school. Another project, which is a very small one, but also interesting, also in north of France, it's, the brief was to make polyvalent hall, a multi-purpose hall in a new neighborhood, which was dedicated at the same time for concerts, for music, but also for the families to make the family dinners like weddings or on the Saturday evening. So the brief requested that we could make a big hall of something like 900 square meters that could have the two functions. On one hand, a performance hall of 600 seats with also the rehearsals. And on the other hand, on the weekends, family banquets, and to redivide this space into banquets room. And very fast in the study of the brief, we found very difficult to have in the same room so different activities, because why to stop the rehearsal on the weekend, because there is a need for families dinner, and also it's very complicated to transform this. And our goal very fast was to see how can we divide this function in two, and how can we provide space for the two functions so that they can be quite autonomous. So we were helped by the fact that the hall should be built below artificial hill, artificial park, which was designed by the urban planner and the landscaper. We were supposed to build on this red square, the 1,700 square meters. But looking to the section, we observed that finally the hill gave for free a space below the hill, and that we could extend. Instead of doing this square block of the program, we could extend below the hill and win the space that would allow to separate the functions and to give to every function the best place. So we proposed to this scenario, and that was accepted. We won the competition, and we could build the project. So we used a very simple system of construction with concrete plates that were also doing the shape of the hill, and that allows to develop the surface much bigger than was expected. So instead of doing just this polyvalent space, we could add all this space around that would allow at the same time to have the concert, but also the family banquets without any disturbance on one to the other, but also finally a bigger potential when everything is available and open to make a big festival. So the character of this project is to have only 2 facades, and this facade were done with a double skin and inside a kind of garden, because it's different as housing. The use could not be the same, and we prefer to have a kind of garden that could be also a place for children activities. And now it's built, and it really proves always this great capacity of use of the space, because more than just the amplified music that was expected there, there was also the classic orchestra who comes there to have also concerts, and they have found that the acoustic was very good, so they like to come here. But also amplified music and big concert, but also sports like boxing competition. And also for the children, special activities of. And the last project is how to reuse an industrial hall and invent a space for art. Again, a competition, and this was the purpose of the competition was to reuse this industrial building to make a gallery for. In fact, it's a special program of public contemporary art collection, which is at the same time reserved to conserve some artworks, but also a place for exhibition. And we were supposed to make this 7,000 square meters of program inside this block. Just to see the place, the building is here, and all this is empty because it's the result and the consequence of the demolition of shipyards. A huge shipyard that was here in the city and was demolished 20 years ago. And this building just has been kept because for the city it was a special special building that the people call cathedral, because it was the last hall where the boats were assembled before they moved to the sea. So only this building has been kept. When they opened the door, it was really amazing to see this huge space, totally empty, 35 meters high, 70 meters long, 25 meters large, with a lot of light, in very good condition, with a ground that could support something like 5 tons per square meters. We had very fast the intuition, quite immediately, that it was a mistake to fill this building with floors in order to create the art storage, and that would change too much this building, and also that we will lose the great potential of this volume. So finally, after some weeks of different options, we returned to our intuition, and we proposed for the competition to keep the building as it is, without anything inside, and to build the twin just on the side, exactly the same, to build the new program. So, and after different discussions in the competition, because some people of the administration say that we were out of the brief, and some others say no, it's not out of the brief, and finally we were not out of the brief, and we won the competition, and we could build the building. So the new building is exactly the same shape, because for us it was the best way to stay beside this existing building, not to demonstrate more and not to be not to exist neither. So for us it was a kind of restarting of the site with because we can think that it calls another one and another one and another one. So this building is new. It contains a whole program with two envelopes. Inside we have the block with control conditions for conserving the artworks, and around we have an extra space with which is very helpful also to transform slightly the climate, and the need for air conditioning, for energy for air conditioning is less, because we have this intermediate space that is something like 7 degrees more or less than outside, depending the season. So, and the interior space is kept for exhibition, for events, and then we have the new building with different exhibition space. One of them as 9 meters high. It was requested by the program. And this last level, which is an extra space, which is unprogrammed, and it's just a result of the box of storage and the double envelope. But it's a very nice place for also for exhibition, for parties, or just to stay and to contemplate the city and the harbor. Of course, the building, the two buildings in one were done with the initial budget, but this, the existing building was in a very well state, and we didn't have to spend a lot in this one. Okay, and now I will let the floor with a great pleasure to Hans Walter Müller, who is a great architect and engineer that will show us a lot of amazing and interesting things. He's also a very good friend, and I'm very pleased to let you the place. Thank you very much.
Yes, good. Bitte? Erster Bild, ja. So, guten Abend. Ich spreche jetzt Deutsch. Ich spreche zwar schon in Paris nur Französisch, aber ich glaube, das Deutsch wird noch gehen. Und das wird mir gut tun. Und ich kann Ihnen also jetzt zunächst dafür danken, dass Sie gekommen sind. Und hier mit dem ersten Bild, das ist Jean-Philippe, mit dem wir und mit Anne, mit dem ich befreundet bin, schon viele Jahre. Und das nächste Bild. Aus dem Grunde, wir haben verwandte Seelen, habe ich für Sie auf Ihrem Dach über Paris ein kleines Volumen gebaut. Das nächste Bild. bescheiden, bitte, geht's nicht?
Doch, aber es ist nicht
So. Das zur Einführung. In dem nächsten Teil lasse ich ablaufen die Bilder automatisch. Und ich habe mich seit 50 Jahren sowohl mit den Volumen auseinandergesetzt als auch mit Lichtprojektionen. Ich habe sogar mit Lichtprojektionen angefangen und eines Tages habe ich, und da ich ein Architekt bin und nicht einseitig in immer die selbe Richtung schaue, sondern der Raum eine richtige Rolle spielt, war ich also gegen, dass man wie in der Kirche zum Pfarrer hinschaut, in der Schule zum Lehrer und auf dem Fernseher auch in dieselbe Richtung immer schaut, sondern wollte ich erleben, dass man in einer Projektion sein kann und auch in einem Raum, der sich verändern kann, was die aufblasbaren Volumen betrifft. Alle Volumen, die Sie sehen, habe ich selbst gebaut. Die sind alle von mir hergestellt und kalkuliert, ausgerechnet. Und ich bin also sehr mit der Wirklichkeit verbunden. Und das nur kurz zu sagen. Jetzt können wir loslegen. Ja. Eine Kirche, 69, zusammengepackt 39 Kilo für 200 Gläubiger. Ein Theater. John Cage im ersten Vortrag. Atelier Jean du Buffet. Das kann man besser machen, aber. Das sind Workshops in verschiedenen Schulen. Hier ist alles aufgeladen. So, hier mal auch jetzt einen Augenblick. Jetzt, nachdem das so abgelaufen ist, muss ich jetzt etwas dazu sagen, wie das funktioniert. In einem Aufblasvolumen wird einfach das hergestellt wie eine Haut, und indem man da die Luft hineingibt, entsteht die Form. Und was nun wichtig ist dabei, dass da ein Ventilator ständig laufen muss. Das fällt den meisten Leuten natürlich nicht, weil man sagt, das ist Energieverschwendung und so weiter nicht. Aber um das nun zu erklären, der Ventilator, der produziert einen Druck, einen Innendruck, der sich pro Quadratzentimeter auf der Haut verteilt. Dieser Druck pro Quadratzentimeter erzeugt dann eine Spannung in der Haut. Das ist genau dasselbe wie unser Herz. Unser Herz, das läuft auch sehr regelmäßig, ständig, erzeugt einen Druck in unseren Venen und einen Zug in den Venen nicht. Das ist also dasselbe Prinzip, über welches auch Blaise Pascal sehr viel gearbeitet hat und der sogar sehr paradoxal aussprach. Er sprach aus, dass es eine paradoxale Situation ist, die man nicht verstehen kann. Denn alle Häuser, die hergebaut wurden, gehen mit der Schwerkraft. Nicht? Man sagt, Stein auf Stein wird das Haus gebaut. Und Stein auf Stein, dann akkumuliert man, dann addiziert man den Druck, der auf die Fundamente stößt. Je höher ein Haus ist, umso mehr wird akkumuliert. Und das ist das Prinzip der Schwerkraft, mit der wir normalerweise bauen. In der Natur hat noch kein Tier eine Wand gebaut. Das existiert in der Natur nicht, eine Wand zu bauen oder mit der Schwerkraft zu arbeiten. Die Natur wendet das Prinzip an von der Mechanik der Flüssigkeiten und Gase. Das ist das physikalische Gesetz. Und der Unterschied ist der, dass diese Mechanik der Flüssigkeiten und Gase den Druck, das heißt die Kraft verdoppelt, vervielfältigt. Das ist das Unglaubliche. So, wenn man an den Ventilator zum Beispiel $1 hingäbe, nicht, dann fände man auf jeden Quadratzentimeter auf der Haut $1. Das kann man sich gar nicht vorstellen. Aus dem Grunde hat Blaise Pascal nannte das paradoxal. Und der Druck und die Energie wird verteilt. Das ist also ein völlig anderes Prinzip, ein Bauprinzip, wo die Energie vervielfältigt wird und verteilt wird, nicht? Das ist also super interessant. Und das muss man sich klar werden. Es geht also bei den aufblasbaren Volumen nicht darum, wie man so sagt, ach, machen Sie auch so ein Chateau, wo die Kinder drauf hüpfen, nicht? Und dann geht es noch so weiter, dass also der Ventilator, der läuft, sehr wenig Energie braucht. Zum Beispiel habe ich das gelbe Volumen, was Sie gesehen haben, das ist 30 Quadratmeter groß. Und in den Bäumen, was in den Bäumen ist, und das benutzt einen Ventilator für 20 Watt. Das kostet mich im Jahr 40 € an Elektrizität. Das muss man wissen, sonst versteht man vielleicht die Sache etwas besser, dass das selbst wenn es ständig laufen muss, dass es sehr, sehr wenig Energie braucht. Die Spannung in einem aufblasbaren Volumen wird größer mit dem Radius. Mit demselben Druck wird die Spannung größer mit dem Radius, mit derselben Energie. Das heißt, je größer ein Volumen ist, umso weniger braucht man an Energie. Das ist auch paradoxal, nicht? Das Prinzip von den aufblasbaren Volumen, von der Mechanik der Fluid, ist uns nicht, gehört uns irgendwie nicht. Da wir schon seit ewig immer mit der Schwerkraft zusammenarbeiten und mit der Schwerkraft uns zusammen auseinandersetzen. Und das ist also sehr wichtig, das irgendwie zu sagen und zu verstehen. Dass man also mit den aufblasbaren Volumen in eine andere, praktisch in eine andere Welt geht und eine neue Konstruktion erfunden existiert, die letzte, die zweite, und die der Natur viel näher ist. Denn unser Körper, wie gesagt, besteht ja auch nur aus Flüssigkeiten und mit Druckunterschieden funktionieren wir ja auch. Das wissen wir, das weiß ja jeder von selbst. Das wäre wichtig zu sagen. Und jetzt kann ich Ihnen, ich wohne also schon in einem aufblasbaren Volumen seit 47 Jahren jetzt. Das ist gleichzeitig mein Atelier und meine Wohnung. Und das ist vielleicht interessant einmal zu sehen. Man muss nur so etwas verrückt sein wie ich, damit das überhaupt, sagen wir mal, die Idee dazu haben kann. Dann lassen wir es mal los. Das ist also der Lageplan bei mir. Abgeblasen. Voilà. Es geht also, was ich noch sagen könnte, dass man hier gesehen hat, dass es also nicht nur um aufblasbare Volumen geht, sondern dass es um eine Welt geht, wo die Tiere, die Musik und die Natur eine große Rolle spielt. Und das ist eben wichtig zu sagen, das glaube ich, das war wichtig zu sagen. Vielleicht haben Sie das gespürt und gemerkt. Ich glaube, das genügt für einen Eindruck, wenn Sie mir Fragen stellen wollen, eventuell. Oh, es gibt natürlich, ja, natürlich, aber naja, vielleicht wollen Sie eine Frage stellen oder. Vielen Dank.
Gleich eine Frage. Seit 47 Jahren wohnen Sie in Pneu.
Ja. Ich habe aber auch schon vorher das nicht, weil ich keine Haare mehr habe, sondern die habe ich schon vorher verloren.
Und wie, also Sie haben es vorhin gesagt, Sie brauchen für diese eine Pneukonstruktion 40 € pro Jahr Energie.
Ja.
Das ist aber jetzt nur der Ventilator.
Nein, ich brauche, das habe ich in meinem ganzen, ich habe ja nicht sehr viel gesagt bis heute Abend nicht. Das ist ja ganz klar, dass da noch sehr viel mehr zu sagen ist ja natürlich völlig richtig. Und außerdem würde ich anfangen, wieder von den Nachteilen etwas zu reden, nicht? Denn dann verhindere ich, dass Sie mich darauf hinweisen, dass dass es Nachteile gibt, nicht? Dann sage ich am besten gleich mal als Erster, wo die Nachteile liegen. Erstens mal entspricht das noch nicht unserer heutigen Zeit. Das sind diese ganzen Untersuchungen, die ich mache, entsprechen noch nicht dem, das gefällt irgendwie, aber keiner wagt es irgendwie länger in so einem Überdruck zu leben, nicht? Richtige Nachteile sind zum Beispiel, die Isolation ist natürlich nicht genau wie eine Wand aus 40 cm Dicke. Auch der Übertrag von dem Ton, diese Isolation ist auch nicht sehr gut. Dass man mit einem Messer hineinstechen kann und dass man praktisch keine Schlösser mehr braucht, weil man einfach mit einem Messer hier hineinkommt, nicht? Und Moment, was gibt es denn noch für Nachteile? Ja, dass das zusammenfallen kann. Man muss wissen, aber ich benutze das auch so, dass wenn ich zum Beispiel Freunde habe und Gäste, dann essen wir in meinem Atelier und dann trinken wir sehr viel und essen und reden viel und so und dann plötzlich beim Nachtisch mache ich Musik natürlich auch an und dann stelle ich den Motor ab. Und dann sinkt das ganze Ding zusammen, nicht? Und das ist natürlich sehr spektakulär. Sie haben aber auch gesehen, zum Beispiel in diesem Volumen, wo am Schluss in São Paulo, das ist ein Theater, das hat praktisch einen Vorhang, einen Theatervorhang, der dreidimensional ist. Das ist nämlich der mittlere Teil, der plötzlich, die Leute sitzen rundherum und der dann plötzlich mit dem Druckunterschied, den ich regeln kann, geht das Ding in die Höhe und die Musiker erscheinen da nicht. Das heißt, man kann damit arbeiten. Das heißt, man kann nicht sagen, dass es ein Nachteil ist, dass ein Volumen zusammenfallen kann. Man muss sogar sagen, das gehört zu der Natur dazu, von dieser Konstruktion. Und dann muss man das sogar benutzen. Das ist also könnte auch noch ein Nachteil sein. Ich sage aber auch oft, wenn man solche Sachen liebt, aus dem Grunde rede ich nie von Nachteilen, weil man die Nachteile eigentlich gar nicht mehr sieht, nicht? Das geht ihm ja im Leben genauso. Wenn Sie irgend verliebt sind, dann sehen Sie die Nachteile von Ihrem Partner, sehen Sie auch nicht. Und das ist ja auch gut so, nicht? Und das ist also so wunderbar, wenn man die Leidenschaft hat, dann die ganzen Dinger zu bauen, 50 Jahre, über 50 Jahre hinweg, das ist ja auch, da muss man ständig dabei gewesen sein, nicht? Ich habe Ihnen ja nur einen kleinen Teil gezeigt. Und ja, das ist
Sie
halt
bauen es selber. Also
Bitte?
Sie haben ja mir mal gesagt, Sie bauen alle diese Pneukonstruktionen in Ihrem Pneuhaus.
Sie haben ja gesehen, die Maschine, die war das Hochfrequenzmaschine, die habe ich 1969 mit sehr viel Mühe, weil die sehr viel Geld kostet, gekauft und die läuft immer noch, mit denen baue ich immer noch. Jetzt habe ich für Tangeli in Midi-la-Forêt habe ich ein kleines Volumen gebaut für das Publikum, den Empfang vom Publikum. Das habe ich jetzt mein letztes, was ich jetzt gebaut habe. Aber was Sie gesehen haben, das für die Flüchtlinge in Paris, da habe ich ein Volumen gebaut. Das habe ich ja gezeigt vielleicht, aber Sie wussten ja nicht, worum es geht. Das ist 900 Quadratmeter groß. Und da habe ich natürlich, das habe ich auch bauen müssen in zwei Monaten, nicht? Das war sehr kurz für so etwas. Und da bin ich in eine Fabrik gegangen, das mache ich manchmal auch. Ich kenne Fabriken auch, die Maschinen haben. Und da bin ich aber dabei. Das heißt, um das zu überwachen, nicht? Weil das ist, man muss halt das überwachen. Naja, warum?
Aber eigentlich sind Sie Raumschneider.
Bitte?
Eigentlich sind Sie ein gewisser Raumschneider.
Das ist, ich bin wie ein Schneider, der Kleider macht, in denen man wohnt, nicht? Eine große Hose, in der man wohnt, könnte man sagen, nicht? Das ist das Interessante dabei. Und dann wird es ausgerechnet, dass heute natürlich mit dem Computer ist es furchtbar leicht, nur noch vor 15 Jahren habe ich es noch mit der Hand gemacht, praktisch, alles ausgerechnet. Und dann rechne ich auch den Wind aus und ich nehme alles auf mich, alle Gefahren und habe natürlich auch Schwierigkeiten gehabt. Ein Leben ohne Schwierigkeiten wäre ja kein Leben, nicht? Aber fragen Sie mich nicht, damit Sie jetzt die wissen wollen, sind Sie nicht so neugierig. Aber fragen Sie mich, Sie können mich heute trotzdem alles fragen, das ist ja ganz klar, ich bin ja hier dafür da.
Aber eigentlich haben Sie sehr viel Projekte gemacht, also wie soll man sagen, Ausstellungen, Ausstellungsräume, Konzerträume, also eher temporäre Raummodelle, die, wie soll man sagen, eine Zeit lang funktionieren, dann woanders hinwandern. Das heißt, das ist eigentlich das...
Ganz genau. Die Anwendung für Theater ist das Wichtigste, das Interessanteste. Sie haben ja gesehen, die Kirche, die war nur 39 Kilo schwer und war sehr klein, 1,20 Meter breit. Und man baut auch alles auf, ohne dass man mit Masten oder etwas hat, alles auf dem Boden. Und dann kommt die Luft hinein und dann nimmt es seine Form an. Aus dem Grunde habe ich mindestens 20 Theater gebaut. Das erste war mein erster Auftrag, das war von der Fondation Mac in Saint-Paul-de-Vence. Das war rot und weiße gestreift. Das waren 900 Plätze schon. Das war mein erster Auftrag, nicht? 1970. Auf allen meinen ganzen Aufträgen habe ich natürlich immer was Neues, kommt immer was Neues dazu und das ist dann besonders interessant. Wenn man älter wird, dann hat man natürlich viel mehr Erfahrung, nicht? Aus dem Grunde kann man es mit Leichtigkeit sagen, dass das Alter eine unwahrscheinlich interessante Sache ist. Und
aber Sie spielen ja auch sehr stark.
Zu sagen, nicht?
Aber Sie spielen ja auch sehr stark mit den unterschiedlichen Durchlässigkeiten, Farben, Licht. Jetzt in Ihrem Haus mit Natur und Durchscheinen und von innen beleuchtet, von außen. Also es ist eigentlich auch ein unglaublich breites Spiel an Möglichkeiten mit dem Material und mit dem Licht und Schatten und Transluzent, Transparenz zu spielen.
Genau. Ich bin ja Architekt, nicht? Das ist ja interessant zu wissen, nicht? Man glaubt es gar nicht. Und was ich aber sagen wollte, das geht genauso vor, wenn ich einen Kunden habe, da hat er auch ein Cahier de Charge, ein Programm, nicht? Und ich habe dann eine Aufgabe und muss das dann im besten Sinne, in seinem Sinne, die Sache ausführen, wie ein Architekt das macht. Und dazu hinzufügen natürlich noch, was ich zusätzlich weiß und vorschlagen kann.
Sonst wird es dir gestohlen. Gibt es Fragen?
Ist alles klar.
Ist die Verlockung nicht sehr groß, eigentlich nur eine transparente Hülle zu machen, weil das kommt dem Wohnen im Freien am nächsten?
Ja, man muss nur wissen, ob man im Freien wohnen will. Das kann man nur machen, aber...
Das kommt dem Gedanken sehr nahe, dass man sich gut überlegt, ob kein Haus nicht besser ist als ein Haus. Also ich glaube, das im freien Wohnen ist ja das Ursprüngliche, oder?
Ach
das
nein,
kommt
die Brüder haben sich immer versteckt, ja, früher in Höhlen und so weiter. Das Haus wurde nur erfunden, damit man sich vom Feind versteckt und von der Witterung auch geschützt ist, nicht?
Ja, es gibt auch Primaten, die auf Bäumen schlafen, zum Beispiel. Aber diese, haben Sie einmal gewohnt in einem transparenten Volumen? Oder?
Nein, habe ich nie gewohnt. Außerdem, keiner wohnt im Augenblick in einem aufblasbaren Volumen. Ich bin der Einzige, denn keiner will es ja nicht. Für die Theater ist es gut, aber für die persönlichen Leute, die finden das super gut, aber das will keiner nicht. Das ist auch das Gute dabei, denn wenn jeder was wollte, dann könnte ich überhaupt nichts mehr überlegen, nicht? Das ist ein Irrtum, wenn man glaubt. Der Le Corbusier hatte mal eine Sache gemacht bei einem Wettbewerb. Das war eine wunderbare Gegend, so wie hier in Tirol, mit Bergen und alles. Und da hat er nur ein kleines Fenster hineingemacht, nicht? Und da haben alle Leute gesagt, ja, da muss doch ein großes Fenster hin, damit man das sieht. Das wird man ja leid, nicht? Genau wie wenn man mit einer Frau zusammenlebt, wenn man die den ganzen Tag sieht, da ist es ja genauso, nicht? Ich sage mit einer Frau, weil ich ein Mann bin, aber umgekehrt ist es genauso ähnlich. Ich übertreibe etwas. Ich übertreibe aber sehr gerne. Und,
darf ich eine Frage stellen? Es hat mir sehr gut gefallen, was Sie da machen. Ich wollte Sie fragen, ich glaube, Sie haben keinen Konkurrenten, oder? Es gibt niemanden, der Ähnliches macht.
Nein, weil keiner will.
Aber wie haben Sie Ihre erste Kundschaft bekommen? Ich kann mir vorstellen, dass sehr viele Leute doch gerne was Konkretes haben und nicht eine Plastikhaut, die über dem Kopf zusammenfallen kann.
Stimmt.
Also wie lange hat es gebraucht? Und ich denke, es waren öffentliche Auftraggeber, die ersten Kundschaften waren.
Das ging gleich sehr groß los, 1969 oder 68 schon. Da kam ein Pfarrer zu mir, der hatte keine Kirche. Und der hat gesagt, zu dieser Zeit habe ich auch viele Objekte gebaut, aufblasbare Objekte. Und der hat mich dann eingeladen, ob ich nicht ein Kirchenfest animieren könnte, nicht? Mit Objekten und so weiter und Projektionen und so weiter. Und da habe ich gesagt, und wenn ich in eine Kirche mache, dann machen Sie dann die Messe drinnen, nicht? Und da war ich natürlich auf dem Weg, der mich interessiert hat, dass die aufblasbaren Volumen zu einer wirklichen Nutzen dienen können, nicht? Und da war ich natürlich der Schlauste, dass ich das gesagt habe. Und da hat er ja gesagt. Und das war natürlich, hat mir eine unwahrscheinliche, Reklame gemacht, nicht? Das war in allen Zeitungen, nicht? Und wie man so will, ich habe das nicht extra gemacht, aber wie man so ist man nicht. Und dann habe ich eines Tages, wie die Zufälle so sind, in einem großen Essen in der Fondation Mag, da konnte man Fragen stellen und da hat einer die Frage gestellt, wir hatten schon sehr viel getrunken und das war ein Kongress Ja, mit 300 Leuten, das waren alle Architekten von der ganzen Welt waren da eingeladen. Und da habe ich gesagt, wie kann man so eine dumme Frage stellen an einen Künstler, wo kommen Ihre Inspirationen her? Und das hat den Besitzer von der Galerie Mark imponiert. Er hat mich dann am nächsten Tag kommen lassen und hat gesagt, können Sie mir kein Theater bauen? Das ist so seltsam, wie die Sachen gehen. Nicht? Man kann da nicht jetzt sagen, ich mache jetzt irgendetwas, das sind solche Situationen. Und hoppla, das macht das noch kaputt. So ging das dann weiter und bis heute noch, nicht?
Wobei eins muss ich sagen, diese pneumatischen Tennishallen waren eine Zeit lang wie Seuchen in der Landschaft. Und die waren selbstverständlich. Also da hat man nicht drüber nachgedacht, was es ist. Aber da waren viele irgendwie, das waren diese schnellen. Gut.
Also ich finde Ihren Lebensweg faszinierend, diese Aufgabe, aber ich tue mich etwas schwer mit dem Gedanken, mit dem Material in Bezug auf Theater und musikalische Aufführungen.
Ja.
Wie lange brauchten da die Schauspieler oder in dem Fall die Musiker, wie ist es mit der Akustik,
Ja.
damit sie sich an das Material oder dieses Raumgefühl gewohnt haben und das ihre rüberbringen konnten zum Publikum?
Ja, das ist eine richtige Frage, denn die Akustik ist wie in einem normalen Haus, hängt von der Form ab. Wenn Sie in einem Gewölbe sind, zum Beispiel in einem alten Gewölbe, das kennt man, diese Situation, wo man plötzlich auf der anderen Seite was hört, was einer sagt, weil die Reflexionen so weitergehen. Und das genau dasselbe in einem Aufbahnballon. Aus dem Grund ist eine Halbkugel ist die Akustik sehr schlecht. Und in meinem Atelier zum Beispiel, das Sie gesehen haben, vielleicht wissen Sie gar nicht, dass das mein Atelier war, das ist auch nicht sehr schlimm. Da ist die Akustik super gut, weil die Form, und ich arbeite im Augenblick für eine Philharmonie für die Beethoven-Festival, wo es die Nicke Wagner ist, die Direktorin. Und da wird plötzlich, da haben wir schon etwas ausprobiert, da haben wir nämlich 40 Klavierspieler von den Virtuosen bis zu Schülern in ein Volumen gegeben und in einem Hof von einem Schloss waren die Zuhörer waren rundherum. Und da hatte man plötzlich den Beethoven gehört, aber ich war nicht nur Beethoven zum Glück. Dann hat man plötzlich die Musik gehört, wie eingepackt und völlig anders. Dann war man plötzlich erstaunt, so hat man den Beethoven, das war auch andere, völlig anders gehört. Und auf dieser Sache arbeite ich im Augenblick, wo ich einen Raum entwickelt habe, der auf der einen Seite vielleicht überhaupt nicht mehr einem Konzertsaal entspricht, aber auf der anderen Seite unwahrscheinlich interessant in Bezug auf die Akustik ist. Das sind Konusse, wie nennt man das? Naja, das kann ich jetzt nicht alles erklären. Aber das ist, außerdem habe ich andere Volumen, wo ich in die Haut Lautsprecher einbaue. Dass also die Haut weitergeht von dem Lautsprecher. Da ist man im Lautsprecher drin, nicht? Wie ich ja auch immer in der Projektion im Licht sein will und da lebt man plötzlich im Ton, nicht? Und dann habe ich mit Luftbewegung, das mache ich jetzt auch ab Samstag in der ETH in Zürich mit den Studenten, mache ich einen Versuch, wo durch Druckunterschied Bewegungen entstehen können innerhalb eines Volumens. Jetzt wird es aber ein bisschen zu kompliziert. Ich wollte Ihnen gar nicht so viel Sorgen machen, damit Sie heute gar nicht mehr schlafen können. Aber da fängt es nämlich erst richtig an mit den Volumen, wenn man da durch Druck die Lautsprecher bewegen kann. Da geht dann plötzlich ein Lautsprecher geht in die Höhe und verschwindet 8 Meter höher. Und was da passiert, das untersuche ich im Augenblick schon einige Jahre her. Und das ist sehr, 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 sehr amüsant. Da kommt man, weil wenn man so Sachen einfach macht, die man normalerweise nicht machen kann und darf, geht man einen Schritt weiter.
Dann vielen herzlichen Dank. Thank you very much and schönen Abend.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.